Check, check, check. Hey, David, can you hear me? Thanks. Check, check, check.
I can hear you. So online audio check.
Oh, can hear you fine. Thanks, David.
You're a little quiet.
I'm talking through my computer mic. I'll try the council room. How does this sound, David? Thanks.
That sounds better.
Okay, okay. Hello? Hi, Council Watson. This is just an audio check. Thanks. Hopefully you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thanks so much.
Perfect. You sound great. Thanks.
Good.
Councillor Appleton and Watson online, are you able to hear me okay?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, good.
Yeah, very good, Your Worship.
Thank you. I always hate this weird, awkward silence that always seems to descend about a minute before the start of the meeting, but we do have to wait for the hour to start, so give us a second here. 10 seconds to be more precise. Okay, and welcome everyone to our regularly scheduled council meeting for April the 13th, 2026. As we call the meeting to order, we always just like to take a moment and acknowledge that we gather on the traditional territories of the Coast and Strait Salish peoples, specifically the Lekwungen-speaking people known today as the Songhees and the Esquimalt nations, and that their historic connection to these lands and waters continue to this day. First order of business is approval of the agenda. Can I have a mover and seconder? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. I just want to pass on that Councillor Braithwaite is unable to join us this evening, but we have two members of council, Councillor Appleton and Councillor Watson, joining us electronically. I can see them, even though, and they will appear on the screen when they speak, but just so people know, we do have quorum here this evening. Next order of business is adoption of the minutes. These are the two regularly scheduled meetings of March 23rd. Same mover and seconder. Thank you. Any changes or corrections to those minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And then receipt of the three committee minutes in the record. Moved, seconded. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. My remarks are fairly brief tonight. We had a little bit of a break between the last meeting and this meeting. I just wanted to highlight a few items that have been happening. One, just want to congratulate Carnarvon Baseball for having their grand opening this weekend. Off to a great start. The Greater Victoria Sports Awards were held, and some really fantastic examples of local sporting people, young and old, really quite fantastic. And I want to extend my appreciation to Greater Victoria Tourism. They have a sports tourism group that does that work and organizes it, and it's a fantastic way of celebrating sports excellence. Also want to just acknowledge the artist studio tour that happened this last weekend. An amazing grouping of artists, people that open up their homes and share their artwork. Several new ones that did it for the first time this year, and several who attended at a new format to kick it off, which was a little cocktail evening, Meet the Artist, over at the Monterey Center, where many of the artists were there, both meeting with people, but also selling their art. I got my mom a birthday present there, so it was great. Also want to just point out that Newsies, which is the Canadian College of Performing Arts, which is located here, it's their season-ending performance, always fantastic, is happening at the McPherson Theatre starting this week as well. In terms of items that just would be of general interest to members of the public and to council, at the CRD meeting last week, there was a final vote of adoption for the Regional Arts Facilities Service. So this is a new service. It takes an existing service, which is the Royal and McPherson management, which is at the day-to-day handling is handled by the Royal McPherson Theatre Society. But for those who don't know, the Royal Theatre, when it was closing down, was bought by Oak Bay, Saanich, and Victoria, and has stayed in ownership of those three organizations for the last umpteen years, 40-some years. And the McPherson was gifted to the city of Victoria and has sat with just single ownership for all these years. And so what the service establishment does is it takes ownership essentially of those two buildings, and Mary Winspear, all three regional significant theaters, and allows the service to kind of help just from a capital management perspective, share the cost of those more regionally, but also allows for the establishment of grants. So what we have found is that particularly the McPherson Theatre is underutilized because the cost of operating the theatre is quite high for nonprofits to hold events there. So this will be a granting agency that will allow some of the schools and other things that want to put on performances to be able to do that in a cost-effective way, and in that way help drive some of the utilization back up on the facility. And that will greatly help. Just the revenue will help with the capital maintenance costs of those two very important heritage buildings. So that was gone through a multi-year process. It actually extended back into last term when this whole process started. So that was finally adopted at the CRD last week. And that's it. That concludes my comments for this evening. Our next order of business is public comment and question period. This is an opportunity for members of the public, if you wish to address council on items not on the agenda tonight and not related to land use items, which will have public input, to come talk to council. So you can ask questions or make a statement. And if people are online or in person, you can do that. We have someone with their hand up online. Mr. Zelka, please unmute yourself. If you could just demonstrate, you could give your name, your municipality of residence. You don't have to give your address. And then you have up to 3 minutes to talk to council. Welcome. Oh, Mr. Zelka, you have unmuted, but we can't hear you. Are you speaking?
Let's see. Can you hear
there
me
are.
now?
We can hear you now, yes.
Wonderful. Hello, Council. My name is Eric Zelka. I live in the municipality of Oak Bay in the northern part of the district, and I wish to address some items on the agenda with respect to the, I think it's called, let's see if I can get this correctly, the Draft Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Framework that you're considering adopting later on in the meeting. I'm quite alarmed by what I've read. In that it appears to suggest that that staff, valuable staff and valuable staff time will be working to promote.
Sure. Tell us, Zelka, that's not on the agenda this evening.
It's not on the agenda this evening. Okay, just.
Oh, sorry. It's a result of. So that is subject to public input. I'll let you speak now, but yeah, go ahead. It is, sorry, it's adoption of the committee of the whole discussion that happened at the last meeting. So please go ahead and speak. You're welcome to do so.
Well, I really appreciate that. It was absolutely unclear to me as to whether this was going to result in a bylaw or whether this was going to result in some budget allocation or whatever. But as I say, I'm quite alarmed by the framework and also by the fact that this is being endorsed as it is in light of the current changes that are occurring in the province. Most of you may be aware that the province is about to put on hold the whole application of DRIPA with respect to its impact, its rather negative and severe impact, not only on mineral rights, not only on private property rights, but on negative impact on every single law within the district, within the province of British Columbia. So that would be one concern I would have with this, and I would suggest that this not be endorsed until the province has settled what's happening with DRIPA, because as I say, it's going to be put on hold. The second thing I wish to put forward is this report makes no reference to the fact that this land is ceded. Unlike 95% of the provincial lands, 5% of British Columbia is fully and legally ceded lands, including all of the lands under the Douglas Treaty, as affirmed by the Supreme Court of Canada in 1965. This report makes no reference to that. That is a fundamental and legal difference that must be, I believe, reflected in this draft report from Committee of the Whole as authored by Michelle Hunt, CAO. I wish it would please be amended in there. And obviously for the 5% of lands that were fully ceded, the First Nations there, who were properly at the time the arrangements that were made at the time should be reflected in the different arrangements for those 5% versus the other 95%. And this appears to make no distinction between the two. So those are my two fundamental objections to this entire approach going forward. And please, I would highly recommend you do not endorse this report as is. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Zelka. Anybody else wish to speak? Again, you can raise your hand on the online, or if you're in the room, you can just stand up and come forward if you wish to address council on an item not on the agenda tonight. If it is on the agenda, normally I would just push that back to the open portion. Okay, I don't see anybody wishing to speak to council, so we will then conclude this portion of the meeting and move on to our presentation this evening, which is from BC Transit, and they're here to present the draft Victoria Regional Transit Plan, and we're welcoming Levi. Levi, I don't know, I'm not sure I've ever pronounced your last name, but is it Meganbeer?
Very close, yeah. Take it.
Okay, and Elise Wren are here from BC Transit. Welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much to your worship and members of council and staff for having me here today. I will do my best to be brief because I know this content is pretty verbose or could be. Really pleased to provide an update of the draft Victoria Regional Transit Plan. Before I dive into the details, first of all, what is the plan? What is the context? So this plan is looking to update the previous 25-year long-range strategic plan for the region that was completed in 2011. So this will be looking over the next 25 years up to 2050. Beyond sort of looking at that long-range future, there's also another significant component of this plan is developing comprehensive network and route design guidelines. We recognize there's been significant change within the region over the last 5 to 10 years in the policy world, as well as around development. And we want to make sure this plan is flexible and nimble so that as the region continues to change, the transit network can keep up. Another key element is we want to update the rapid transit context within the plan. We heard a lot of feedback through the engagement process, the desire to expand rapid transit much more quickly and aggressively. So we have plans to look at expanding the mandate of rapid transit within the transit system over the next 25 years. And then finally, guiding future investment and prioritizing it, whether that's operations and maintenance facilities, transit exchanges, dedicated transit infrastructure on street. The plan will look to lay the roadmap for infrastructure improvements within the system over the next 25 years. This plan isn't being built from scratch. It's built on the foundation of previous plans, including the 2011 Transit Future Plan, the 2024 Regional Corridor Strategy, as well as the 2021 Rapid Bus Implementation Strategy. So it's building on a foundation of existing plan frameworks. We know the region has changed significantly since 2011, when we last looked at the long-range future for the transit system. Although there haven't been massive changes in population within the Oak Bay area, there's some areas we know that have changed significantly, the West Shore in particular. But we want to make sure that this plan is able to continue to evolve and adapt as the region continues to grow, change, and adapt and adjust, and as demographics continue to change within the region. There's been significant, I would even say seismic shifts to the land use transit policy framework between the province's Bill 44 and 47. That has some pretty significant implications for collective interrelationships between land use decisions and transit and vice versa. The CRD with their new transportation service and updating their regional transportation plan, of course, creates new discussions within the region, and we continue to collaborate with them. And then finally, we know with Bills 44, 47, all municipalities have been updating their OCPs. So we've been having two directional conversations with our municipalities about how we can co-shape land use and transit collaboratively together. I'm going to skip over this and that. In terms of engagement, we had an online survey open for about 3 weeks in the fall. We got almost 1,900 survey responses, which was fantastic. We hosted around 8 open house events and talked to over 350 different people through the process. We also held 2 stakeholder groups, one for all neighborhood and community associations within the region, and then one for major employers and key regional institutions. And then we also had 3 workshops with local government staff from all the municipalities in the Capital Regional District. Once again, just to make sure that we're planning in alignment with all the other local governments within the region. In terms of key themes, I could probably talk for 30 minutes on this, but we'll keep it brief. Improved service frequency, reliability, and more direct and simple routes. People want to be able to not reference the schedule, hop on the bus and have it get them to where they want to go more quickly and more efficiently. As I mentioned, there's a significant support and desire to see more rapid transit within the region. So that's a key theme for the plan. There's a support for a more connective network in certain contexts. So that potentially means if service is more frequent, people are more willing to consider making a transfer. And then finally, strong support for limited stop service or express service between key regional origins and destinations. And we heard a lot about YYJ, airport service. So there will be clear reflections in the plan about improving airport service. I won't spend too long on the network and route design guidelines beyond what I've already shared. And so that brings us to the crux of the plan, which are really what are the big moves for the transit system over the next 25 years. At this point, we've got 10 draft big moves, everything between establishing the frequent transit network and modernizing the network, to improving inter-regional transit, to establishing key infrastructure such as the Uptown Mobility Hub, and then as well a whole bunch of different rapid transit initiatives that we'd be looking to build upon over the next 25 years. So the frequent and network modernization is probably the most challenging to unpack. Through conversations with local governments and looking at existing and planned future land use, we've identified where within the region we can support frequent transit service based off projected ridership. And so that's the map you can see there, are all the future frequent transit alignments, minimum 15-minute all-day service. We need to look at opportunities to reduce service duplication. As an example, we have about 19 routes that operate on certain sections of Douglas, and many of those are half full at certain times of the day. So can we use our resources a little more efficiently, effectively, and spread the peanut butter a little more evenly across the region, for example? The potential to make some minor adjustments to stop spacing. We have local transit on major corridors that stops every about 200 meters, whereas our frequent and rapid stops every second stop, and it creates confusion and slows transit service down. So there's an opportunity to speed things up a bit. And I'm just going to keep it really high level. Digital on demand is a new tool in our toolkit that we can consider rolling out throughout the region. And I think in particular, Oak Bay could be a candidate and some lower density parts of Oak Bay in the future. Consideration for 24-hour service on a limited portion of the network. We got a lot of feedback about service span and service span limitations. So that's another key consideration. Handy Dart modernization. So last year we completed the View Royal Handy Dart facility, which is a huge milestone. We haven't been able to expand Handy Dart service for the last 10 to 15 years, and we know there's latent demand. So this gives us the opportunity to start investing in Handy Dart again. We also have a custom transit solution, which is a digital tool to help us with scheduling trips and booking trips and making connections easier for people using Handy Dart. So we're looking forward to opportunities to improve Handy Dart into the future. And then higher order rapid transit. So this is a theme that was discussed originally back in 2011, and it was studied again by the Ministry of Transportation and Transit. And we know based off that study that sections of Douglas Street will be at capacity for traditional transit by the mid-2040s. So we really need to be looking to higher capacity transit, larger vehicles, whether that be rail, trackless trams. And so in order to build towards that future, we need to start planning today or very, very shortly. So that's going to be a key theme coming out of the plan, is planning for that higher order transit between downtown Victoria and Langford. And then in terms of other rapid transit, we still retain Mackenzie and Peninsula as future rapid transit corridors. We've identified a strategy for express service as a stepping stone to that future vision for rapid transit. James Bay and Jubilee areas have been added as a potential future rapid transit connection, recognizing their significant density and ridership demand currently. And then additionally, there may be like more than one rapid bus corridor within and to the West Shore long term, depending on where that higher order alignment ends up. In terms of next steps, so we are presenting to all the municipalities within the region and the Capital Regional District. Soon after that, we'll be integrating some minor changes and tweaks, and we'll be bringing the revised draft plan to the Commission at the end of July, at which point we hope to have that endorsed. So with that, I want to thank you very much for having me here today and look forward to answering any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. I'm sure there'll be some questions. Can you go back one slide? And I'm just, maybe if you could just, for the benefit of those here, I think James Bay is clear. Can you just explain where Jubilee is considered by transit standards?
For sure. Great question. So through essentially sort of around where the Jubilee Hospital area is.
No, I know. I'm just making sure that that is clear.
Great question.
Yeah, because I used that term somehow gets applied to some other weird little places in the region. So just make sure that people understand that that's where we're at. Let's go ahead, Councillor Green, and then Smart.
Thank you, and through you to Levi, I'm sorry, to you. I almost called you Levi. I just wanted to, first of all, thank you for the presentation, and I just wanted to clarify, you talked about rapid transportation to Langford, but I'm thinking Langford is a hub by itself, but the whole West Shore is challenging, I think, in terms of volume and traffic and congestion. So I just wondered if you're looking at not just Langford, but the West Shore as, you know, as a broader area. Thank you.
Mr. Baker?
Great question. So through the chair, right now the alignment we have locked in is essentially between Victoria and the 6 Mile area via Uptown. Based off significant changes to official community plans in the West Shore, we need to revisit what the best alignment is between the 6 Mile area and downtown Langford is. We recognize that wherever that alignment ends up being, there's other really key growing areas within the West Shore that we need to be considering from a rapid transit perspective. And so that's largely why we've added this additional rapid transit to the West Shore component. The other thing I'll share as well is that the West Shore is growing very rapidly, and some of the biggest changes to the planned frequent transit network that we made through this plan are in the West Shore to reflect that rapid pace of growth. So really looking to make some investments and improvements in transit to the West Shore over the next 25 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. Through Mayor to our presenter. Thank you so much. Oak Bay residents are such a huge fan of public transit, so it's great to have the presentation today. My first question is just with regards to, you know, the excitement of having increased rapid transit. One of the biggest challenges that I hear from our residents is being able to access that rapid transit. For some of our neighborhoods, it might be a kilometer to get to that rapid transit, and then the transit in their community may be only 30 minutes or an hour during the day, which makes it not very dependable for them. So I guess my big question is, will there be some guiding principles in this plan going forward of at least maintaining the service levels for those local routes that then allow people to access the rapid transit? And are there potentially going to be guidelines to, increase the frequency of some of those local routes, particularly for our seniors that can't walk a kilometer to get to these frequent routes? Thanks.
Great question. So through the chair, I'm wishing I elaborated more on the network and route design guidelines now. At the end of the day, we are developing some comprehensive guidelines so that we're treating the entire region equitably in terms, so what we plan for in Oak Bay is the same approach, strategy, and methodology that we would consider for the West Shore, Saanich, et cetera. I will say that it is more of a demand-based framework. So we are looking to prioritize service where we know we're going to get the most ridership. That being said, maintaining current access and coverage is really critical and is also maintained within our current guidelines. I would say for lower density areas where we see lower ridership, like some lower density areas within Oak Bay, there's going to be some new tools we can look at to potentially improve the service experience. And so one of those tools could be digital on demand. So currently that concept is that it could replace a low frequency fixed route service where there's a bus available and someone can book a trip. And right now what we're contemplating is within about 30 minutes, you should have a vehicle that shows up, maybe not right in front of your door, but down the street, pick you up and take you to a key connection point or to your destination. So we're really excited about the potential for that type of service in areas such as Oak Bay, Cordova Bay, and there's North Saanich, Souk. There's some other areas that potentially could be really appreciated by members of the community. But maintaining that base coverage and access is really critical, and it's going to be a clear goal within the plan.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor, and thank you for those comments. I guess I just would like to just share with some of the experiential stories I've heard. The tricky thing with the demand-based service is when you have communities that have had their transit reduced over the years. Of course, there's going to be less people using it because you can't rely on taking a bus that is every 30 minutes or an hour and know that if that bus doesn't come, then you have to run back and call a cab or your bike. So the fact that, you know, some areas in Oak Bay might not have great ridership numbers might be due to the fact that the service provided is so minimal that people can't rely on it enough to use it. So I'm really grateful to hear those equity guidelines that may come in, and I hope that they're relied on more than the demand-based service, because once service is taken away to a point, people won't use it. So generally, I feel really excited today to see this plan coming forward, especially with the comments around the equity. And I just love to, my next question is just with regards to future engagement opportunities. Will there be an opportunity to review the proposed network and routing guidelines, and particularly those rapid transit stop locations? Because if people have to already go a kilometer and then that nearest bus stop isn't one of those rapid stops, I think our residents would love a chance to have some say on those particulars. Thank you.
Certainly, through the chair. So this is really just the first step, is like establishing that strategic long-range plan and the guidelines. After the Victoria Regional Transit Plan is endorsed, we'd be looking to go through a network review process where we would conduct significant public engagement to support that. So we recognize this is really just a first step, and we need to be having a lot more conversations with the region as we look at potentially designing transit in a slightly different way to make sure it's meeting the broader region's needs. So look forward to continuing to have those conversations, and also stay tuned. The draft plan should be posted with the commission agenda for the July 28th meeting, and we can certainly circulate that out to councils afterwards once it's been endorsed.
Thank you. I have Councillor Patterson, and if Councillor Watson or Appley, if you wish to have any questions, you can raise your hand in the app or just speak up. Okay, Councillor Watson, I have you. Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you so much for the presentation. I did participate in the workshops, and I participated in the surveys so I have, and I'm a frequent user of it, so, and I certainly do appreciate and support Councillor Smart's comments, because I think if, I understand what you're saying about trying to respond for demand criteria, and that's how it gets developed. And it's kind of which comes first, the cart or the horse, I guess, in all of this. We talked about reliable and frequency of bus service being very important to that, and it is. But there are other things that weren't talked about, and that's safety and cleanliness of the vehicles themselves. And certainly the price factor and the ease of just paying fares and all of that. So I have noticed that the newer buses are really built for people my size, the seat-wise, which is probably not quite the norm anymore. And so there's a lot of issues that either encourage or discourage the ridership use. And it has, as the routes, especially if we go to the rapid transit routes and the and some of the hubs, you actually have to be in quite good physical shape to use the transit system, because getting there is challenging. And also the way that we are designing communities now for more variety of active transportation, accommodation for people, the concerns around safety aspects, certainly exiting the buses are a concern, and it would seem also that somehow the islands where the bus stops are somehow not connected with the same demand of ridership, because at peak times you spill out onto the roads. And so I think there's, there are a number of things that will have to evolve over time if we truly wish to encourage ridership, and I believe that public transportation is a way to get a lot of the motor vehicles off the road that we need to. We really do need to find better ways of managing our streets, so I think all of those things are important, and some of them you didn't touch on during your presentation, but I hope they are part of the criteria. The other thing that you didn't touch on during your presentation, and I will just ask about it, is improvements to the UMO system and the use of it, the upgrading of of amounts on the passes and just, have we fixed the hiccups in the UMO system?
Sure. Yeah, if you want to speak to that. Let my
Well,
colleagues speak.
welcome to the meeting, Ms. Wren.
Hello, I'm the Government Relations Manager for Victoria Regional Transit System. So while Levi knows everything about planning, he doesn't know everything about BC Transit, and I just pretend to. I worked on the UMO project when it rolled out in 2023, and Victoria Regional Transit System was the first to receive UMO when we were really the guinea pig before it rolled out to the rest of the province. So I can confidently say that a lot of those hiccups that we did see in those early days have been removed and mitigated. It is software, and software comes with app upgrades and things like that. So we do see the normal amount of hiccups that one would see with a software program, but we are seeing across the province, we're seeing municipalities and local governments that are happy and constituents that are happy with it. And what's coming out next is at the end of May, we'll be rolling out debit and credit tapping as well to make it even easier, especially for our tourist populations that come, so you don't have to fiddle with a pass or an app. You can just tap with your debit or credit card. So we continue, as with any software project, continue to move through the phases and make it better. Yeah.
Thank you. Before I go to Councillor Watson, maybe it's worthwhile to share. So if there are, because I think any user of the system goes, oh, wouldn't it be better if we did this? Or I have a question. Where do people go? The public, members of council, if they have a suggestion or a concern or anything of that nature?
Yeah, and I was happy to hear those subjects that you brought up that aren't part of planning, right, but are part of safety and security. We have a whole team for that. Infrastructure, we have a whole team for that. So you're touching on all these things that I just wanted to tell you about. Because I'm the government relations manager, my job is to keep councils happy, and then also to run the commission. I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. And part of my job is to receive questions from elected officials and then disperse them where they need to go. It's a large organization with 600 administrative people. So I find out where the question goes or find out the information for you. Yeah,
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. First of all, just before I ask my question, I just wanted to just say I'm really pleased to hear that there will be integrated tap service for riders using credit and debit. I'm in Australia right now, and I guess in the last 3 months I've used transit services in Perth, Brisbane, and London, and they all feature that, and it is a fabulous way to move around these regional transit systems without having to get special passes like the Oyster card or what have you. So I'm really pleased to hear that's coming to Greater Victoria. It will make it a lot easier for every rider. My question really was about the amount of public engagement in working towards the 25-year plan. And I saw the survey responses and the open house participants. The numbers seemed small to me, given the size of the ridership. And I just wondered if you could comment on that and also let us know how you advertise these opportunities. Were there QR codes in buses? How did riders know that they could engage with a survey or attend an open house?
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Please go ahead.
Certainly. So through the chair, I will say this engagement process up until the subsequent process where we engaged about the airport was actually the largest response we've ever received for any project at BC Transit. So I will say that overall, in comparison to previous projects we've done, this was a huge success in terms of turnout. We advertised, we had a project webpage, we had a media release, we did digital social media promotion. I believe we had a couple of newspaper ads that were put out. I can't recall if we had radio ads on this one. I know we often will do radio ads as well, so I wouldn't be surprised if that was part of the suite of advertising on this one. And then we also had quite a bit of media attention. So we had articles written from a number of local newspapers beyond the advertising that we did. So overall, the promotion was pretty significant, and the results, once again, second largest response rate we've received at BC Transit.
Councillor Watson?
Yeah, but I did wonder, were there QR codes on buses? That's a common place to reach people where they're actually using the service. So I ride occasionally, not a lot, but I do ride occasionally, and I can't recall that.
Great question. So through the chair, we have what we call interior bus cards. I don't know if there was a QR code on there, but there was definitely a survey link. And we generally try to put those out on every single bus, but it's possible there were a handful of buses that may have missed the cards. But it's definitely part of our standard advertising program, whether it's for a service change or for a planning project like this.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I don't see any other hands at this time. I'm just on behalf of council, thank you very much for coming and doing this. I think it's we rarely have a chance to have these conversations, council to transit, and it's a very important part of our community, like it is with all. Understanding going to all 13 municipalities, so have fun with that. And
Thank you very much.
appreciate you doing all that work. I think it is really important. So thank you.
Thanks again for your
with
time.
that, I think we can let you go. Have a great evening. We now move on to other items of business in section 8. So we already had one person speaking through the public input portion on section 8. So there's 2 items that came with recommendations from the committee of the whole. One was on the task force on derelict vessels with some recommendations, another on the Indigenous Relations and Reconciliation Framework. We've had one piece of public input on that. Is there anybody else, either in the room here or online, who wishes to talk to council about either of these 2 items? We did also have public input at the committee of the whole, so it's sort of a double whammy here for opportunities for public input. Just if you're online, you can raise your hand. If you're in the room, you can raise your hand. Don't see any. Oh, I do. Ms. Matthews, please go ahead.
I just, when I was listening to Zelka talk, I read this morning that there's been the NDP government is going to pause the DRIPA update process. So I don't know if he's aware of that, but I think that needs to be factored in as well. And also about, I don't know, the Douglas treaties. I mean, there's vacant land in all over the lower
Ms.
mainland.
Matthews, I'm just going to ask, I think it's bad form for us to have members of the public debating with each other through the public forum. So why don't you just relate to the items that we have, not what other people are saying, so yeah.
Okay, that's fair enough. I'm just
Yeah,
letting
thank you.
you know
Yes.
that there's been an update. The NDP government is pausing the DRIPA process. So I'll let you know, and I thought of it as, okay, fair enough. I won't say
No,
any
that's
further.
fine, and anything that in the report, certainly welcome your comments on, so I just didn't
the update or this update is important if you're considering whatever you're going to consider, that's all.
Fair. Thank you so much.
You may all know about it anyway, so sorry.
No, please don't apologize for informing us. That's great. I think we are aware, but probably not of all the details. Any other members of the public? Seeing none, we'll come back to these 2 items. Just because we've had public input on them, on one of the 2 things, I think we'll just take them in order. So can I have 811, which is, and just have moved the recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And then can I have someone move 812? It's the Indigenous Framework, moved and seconded. Any discussion? I'm just going to make a brief comment, just because I think it's important. I appreciate both the people from the public who spoke to this. I just kind of want to point out from council's perspective on this framework is not a DRIPA framework. It's not laying out obligations. It's entirely its intention there is to make clear what are our obligations or our intentions as a government to government entity in our relationships with First Nations, and what is the community's role and how we might support them or not support that. And so it just lays out sort of the roles of responsibilities. It's not intended to set policy related to obligations or anything else to do. So the existence of DRIPA or not DRIPA actually doesn't factor into this. It is really directly related to just that, just how are we managing it as a community and as both the elected and non-elected peoples. So that's, I just wanted to give that little sort of summation. Any other discussion at the table before I call the question? Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Excuse me, to follow up your comments, I just want to say the focus is really on, in my opinion, relationship building and reconciliation. So thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Our next session, Section 9, is not subject to public input. We have a report here for council remuneration. We have with us Vicki Gannon, who is our Director of Human Resources. Ms. Gannon, welcome.
Thanks very much. So in addition to the report that is provided in your package, I just wanted to summarize that staff are looking at direction on 3 items. First, the comparator municipalities used for the council remuneration review. Secondly, direction on using a qualified independent consultant or staff rather than an independent task force as previously recommended to complete the council remuneration reviews. And third, we are seeking direction as to when to conduct the reviews. Staff have recommended that the reviews be done at the beginning of the final year of a council term rather than the year prior for implementation after inauguration. And so in terms of next steps, a report will be brought forward at a council meeting in May with remuneration information from the comparator municipalities as agreed to, along with a draft council remuneration policy for approval that will incorporate the resolutions made today, and also an updated council remuneration bylaw for first, second, and third readings. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gannon. So this is today directing a process, not the decision making on the amounts. Thank you for that introduction. Other questions for Ms. Gannon? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. Through you, Mayor. My question was just with regards to the process of determining salaries based on other municipal salary levels that may or may not have been reviewed regularly. And I'm just wondering, it sounds like a far from perfect way of setting a salary. So my 2 questions around that are, how do other municipalities determine their salaries? And is this why a task force was suggested? And what is the anticipated cost of a task force versus a consultant? Thanks.
Go ahead, Ms. Gannon.
Through the mayor, first of all, in terms of why a task force was recommended, my understanding is, as per previous report in 2022, UBCM had recommended that. In my opinion, and also the CAO, we believe that to be for a big municipality. Having task force, they don't necessarily have the knowledge of how councils run, what the governance structure is, so basically you're looking at independent people making recommendations on salaries on something that they don't necessarily know. And so, in my review of what's happening in the region anyways, people typically use a qualified independent consultant to help gather data together with staff. So I'm not sure if that answers all of your questions, but.
Yeah, thank you.
Did I see another hand? Councillor Patterson? And then Councillor Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the report, Ms. Gannon. I'm just a couple of things. I will be a bit of a stickler for this because I don't call it salaries. I do call it remuneration. While it is appreciated, I definitely do not consider it to be a salary as such. And I agree that using a consultant probably does make sense, but I guess it does depend, the cost of the consultant versus the total remuneration for council. I'd sort of like to have a feel for what that looks like proportionally.
Go ahead, Ms. Hunt.
Thank you very much. Through you, Your Worship, to Councillor Patterson. I think, if we were to convene a task force, there's a significant amount of staff time that would have to be involved in that. We haven't, quantified the number of hours, but, recruitment through corporate services and staff reports to council in terms of consideration of that task force, the management of that task force. So I think the costs of that and the time of that would add up to be more than the direct cost of a consultant that typically has the data at their hand, because they do it for other municipalities.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Hunt. That, I think, it gives a good indication of why to go that route, although certainly the cost of the consultant may still be proportionately very high for the total of remuneration. On this report also, it does talk about, well, B is what I was looking at, which municipalities in the capital region with populations larger than 10,000 and total expenses exceeding a certain amount. But I guess my understanding of this is also a big factor is the complexity of the decision making. Oak Bay is a lovely, but still not as complex as some of the municipalities that might have industrial and light industrial, heavy industrial, more agricultural, just a bigger variance of and range of information that is required in order to do the decision making. How will that be taken into consideration in this evaluation?
Ms. Gannon?
Thank you, and through the mayor. Ultimately, it is a council decision in terms of what comparators to use, and in 2022, the recommendation had been used to use the entire CRD, including those two smaller municipalities that I had recommended that potentially may not be a good fit. In terms of looking at the decisions that, the other councils make, and comparing them to the decisions that Oak Bay make, I haven't done that dive.
Ms. Hunt?
Yeah, to Councillor Patterson, through your worship, I think the reason we included potential to exclude the two smaller ones is because we just sort of recognizing the scope of the services and the governance role is that much smaller. The ones that are the ones that are left, obviously have a wide variety of different services, and the scope of them, Saanich and Victoria would be, significantly more than what Oak Bay has, but the majority of them, have similar levels of service. Oak Bay, in actual fact, has, a number of rec centers. We have police, we have fire, large capital program. And so I think the idea was that just those two that are very small are significantly different. And that was why Ms. Gannon recommended or put forward one of the options for removing them. But as she mentioned, council, can include them all, and then you would have the full scope versus those two.
Thank you. Thank you. I turn to Councillor Watson.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to, it's kind of a comment and then maybe a question follows, just to follow up on Councillor Smart's line of inquiry about using CRD-based municipalities as comparators, because we would then just be basing our compensation on what others in the region are doing, and that may not be very useful if they haven't been doing their own updates. And they're all moving forward. We're all moving forward together without any scrutiny about how those compensation levels are set. And I just wondered, this is, I guess, a question for Ms. Gannon or Ms. Hunt, whether it would be possible to ask the consultant, if that's the method we choose, to actually, in their review, provide meaningful ways to select comparators, because I'm not convinced they necessarily need to be from the CRD. And this kind of relates to Councillor Patterson's inquiry about what are the factors. So what are the factors that should drive remuneration for councillors in a municipality with the particular range of services and budget that we have in Oak Bay, and whether that is something that the consultant themselves could suggest some policy on, or maybe we should be asking staff for that policy before we select the consultant. So if you could just comment on that, please.
Ms. Gannon?
Yes, through the mayor. So typically, consultants doing compensation will look at the population of a municipality and the total expenses, so which would include, as Ms. Hunt outlined, so our municipality has police and fire, so, you know, we'd have obviously larger expenses. So that are the two numbers that, when doing reviews, the independent consultant has used.
And so if I could just continue, another factor I think that is important is when that municipality has last done their own review, because if they are like we were up until the last round and hadn't done anything, I think since I read in the report 1989 or something, they're not really going to be a useful comparator to add to the list. So is that something that can be considered too?
Yes, thank you to the mayor, through to Councillor Watson. Yes, my understanding and my analysis within the CRD anyways is that Oak Bay was an outlier back in 2022 with the remuneration being much lower. And in fact, when I was at another municipality, in the region, some of the councillors had contacted me and outlined that they were concerned with Oak Bay's number because obviously when a municipality doesn't do reviews, it does, skew the data and the analysis. So what I've been seeing in the region is that number one, municipalities do these reviews every 4 years. Typically, they're done the last year of the term, so in the fourth year, with implementation after inauguration. And the reason for that is such that the data is up to date. And in addition, the municipalities in the region have been using CPI as an annual increase. And so if you're comparing the data in the same year as the other municipalities who do the CPI increase in January, it is comparing, in my opinion, apples to apples.
Okay, thank you. And then finally, and this does kind of also relate to Councillor Patterson's line of inquiry, I did wonder about including Langford, Victoria, and Saanich in the list because they are significantly more not necessarily complex in terms of range of services, but size of operations. And I just wondered if you could comment on your suggestion that they would stay in the list of comparators.
Again, through the mayor to Councillor Watson, my recommendation as outlined was to exclude Highlands and Metchosin for the reasons that they do have a different governance model. They are rural municipalities rather than urban or suburban, and that to include the bigger municipalities. And understandably, the scale does differ, but as outlined earlier, the complexity is similar, and council members within the different municipalities deal with shared issues, and it does provide a useful upper benchmark.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watson. The other hand, just a question in terms of the remuneration policy, is that still anticipated to be essentially a review of like an average of comparators? And that would, just to Councillor Smart's original question, is that the process that will always be used for this? Or is the consideration of remuneration policy, maybe it is looked at to look at kind of the hours required, et cetera, for the work and basing it more on some more tangible, specific aspects of the job at hand?
So to you, Mayor, I believe that a policy is necessary to capture the data that had been, to capture previous motions. That's not to say that it can't be reviewed at the time of doing council remunerations every 4 years. So The issue is the timeliness factor because, if it's agreed that the remuneration is reviewed in the final year, we would need to bring that policy back prior to, to January to get the accurate, or to get the updated information that council directs us to do.
Okay, no, that's fine, fair. I'm personally comfortable with using that, essentially that approach. I was just curious if the policy review is a very broad policy review or a fairly narrow policy review. And it sounds like it's a fairly straightforward policy review based on the parameters that we provide for inclusion.
That's correct. Yes, the policy will simply outline the motions as approved because the bylaw just outlines the remuneration, i.e. the CPI increase every year. And then it will say, for example, in 2026, it will outline what the starting salary is after inauguration.
Thank you. Starting remuneration after.
Sorry, did I say salaries? Sorry. Remuneration. I'm sorry.
Remuneration and everything written here. So that's
yes, exactly. Sorry.
And that's my last question is just the April the 4th of the year, my observation, so April, so April in the 4th year, it's getting, the political season is getting earlier and earlier, and I appreciate this is always approving a policy for the following council, not for the existing one. But is there any mechanism by which that could be done a little earlier than April? If the data's out in January, could we not, perhaps do that by the end of January or early February as part of that consideration?
To the mayor, yes. Typically, the data from CPI does come out toward the mid to end of January. I'm just going to confer with my colleague here. And that is correct. And so if the policy is established and we know what who we're going out to get the data from, I see no concern in, having that report done by, February, the end of March. And I'm looking to my CEO to make sure I'm not saying anything. But yeah, so that was just basically, if there was any, hiccups to have, to the end of April, but understandably, it is a political season. And I know that the previous report outlined that the data be gathered the year prior, but I do believe that data may be outdated if we do it the year prior. So, if we get, as soon as we get the CPI information in January, I see no reason not to have a staff report by the end of March at the latest.
Okay, thank you for that. And just because there are sort of, as pointed out, 3 different aspects of this, I think what we'll just maybe take any additional comments from people before we get to motions, just because the nature of the motion might get complicated if we move 3 and then amend and debate. So I'll start, and my personal preference would be probably all municipalities. And I think the points have been raised that I think, the salaries of, say, Victoria I would consider to be significantly too high. We are very much an average size if you look at that. But if you took the median, we'd probably be exactly the median size in the region. And so I think including both the larger and the smaller makes sense to me because we fit right in the middle of those two. I think that every 4 years makes sense as proposed, and I think as early as possible in the year whoever that wording would look would be maybe my preference, just to manage that, recognizing that I appreciate having the actual CPI information is important if we're doing that work. Any other comments in general going around the table here before I seek motions? Councillor Patterson and then Smart.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, for your remarks on that, and I think I agree with most of them. But just for clarification, when you're talking about all of the municipalities, are we talking about all of the municipalities in the Capital Region District as listed under A, point A there, or
yes, under
B?
A.
Under A? Okay, thank you.
Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to take the opportunity to share that I would be more in favor of option B. I do appreciate the line of thinking that staff have presented. The other reason I'm in favor of that one is from the point of view of having chatted with a lot of other municipalities in the province of a similar scale. I do think that we need to look at how little interest we often see for people running for council, and the lack of diversity of those people who run from council. And I think a lot of that is reflected in the amount of compensation versus the time that is taken by people who are passionate about this job. And so I just feel that having comparators that are more in the scope of the complexity of the work is a more fitting place to start.
Go to Councillor Green, and I'll go.
Thank you. I have a particular interest in this topic because I was actually the one who brought it forward in 2022 with the support of our Mayor of the Day, Mayor Murdoch. This was a tricky one for Oak Bay because we had neglected this area of remuneration from 1989. So I was grateful that we could do this and bring it forward. And now I am particularly grateful for this report because I think it really lays out a fair and systematic approach to the issue. I agree with Councillor Patterson that salary is, and we slip on this, we are not employees, so that's how it works. It is remuneration or compensation. And I also support option B because I do agree that well, I remember someone saying to me somewhere else in another municipality in the CRD, please do something about your remuneration, you're dragging us all down. So it was an interesting comment, but it was said tongue-in-cheek, but I think those comparators are affected by how they skew. So I would be supportive of option B as well. But again, thank you very much to Ms. Gannon because at the end of the day, HR professionals know this area better than any of us, and it's important to have HR professionals and consultants involved in this area. You can't. I've experienced the task force approach in another municipality, and it became purely political, which was not helpful, and could be very difficult. So I think this is a great way to do it, and I like the approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Green. Councillor Appleton, and then Watson.
No, thank you, Your Worship. So I would just take the opportunity to just further underline my support for option B. For essentially I believe very strongly in what is laid out actually here in the staff report. I concur very strongly with the statement that Highlands and Machosen, in terms of their use as comparators, are just fundamentally quite different just in terms of the governance role for those councils, and that is not a reflection on the capacity on those communities or the capacity of their councils. They do important work. It is, in my view, slightly different work in terms of the governance role and what they seek to achieve in the scope and scale of municipal operations. So in terms of the use of comparators, I am in favor of option B. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. Councillor Watson, before I go to getting motions.
Yes, I support that line of reasoning too. And when the motion's put forward, I would be supporting the option B. And I accept the arguments from staff around why we would keep Langford and Victoria and Saanich. So yeah, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So I think procedurally here, what I will do is we will take the whole motion here, which is I think that's reasonable. So the council directs staff to initiate a review of the remuneration, that the comparative municipalities be used, and I'll take the motion for that. It sounds like the motion will be B, and that prepare a remuneration policy, and that the date. And so what I'll do is just walk through each of those one by one so we can, if there's any amendments, and the only one I can probably see as an amendment is maybe the date, but we'll just deal with those if there are any or aren't any, and that way I'll take the motion as a whole, and then I'll use my chair's prerogative to separate the three portions. So I think that's procedurally a reasonable way of doing that. So can I just have someone move the staff recommendation with the clarity of whether we're using A or B? Councillor Patterson, and you're recommending option B, is that correct? Okay, moved and seconded, thank you. So that's the whole. I'll call the question on the first part, that the council directs staff to initiate a review of the Oak Bay Mayor and council remuneration. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. On option, on the second part, which is that only those municipalities in the CRD with populations larger than 10,000 and total expenses exceeding 10 million. It's already been moved and seconded, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? And any opposed? Just myself opposed. And then that staff prepare a council remuneration policy, including a provision that future remuneration reviews be conducted every 4 years by either an independent consultant or staff. It's already been moved and seconded. Any discussion on that? Doesn't seem to be any concerns. So all those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. And then that the council remuneration policy include that future reviews be completed by April, the 4th year of a council term. So we had the discussion around it. We'll try and do it earlier. Is that sort of the piece, or should we? I'll leave it just if council. If anybody wishes to make a motion to change the language, we can do that. Otherwise, we'll leave it as is. Yeah. So completed by. Okay, I don't see a motion to amend, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. That is concluded. So we look forward to that policy coming back. Thank you very much, Ms. Gannon, for the report. Thank you. We move now to section 10, which is reports and memorandums. These are subject to public input. This is the first item of business, or the only item of business under section 10 is the long-term borrowing guidelines and communication plan. A very comprehensive report. We have with us tonight Ms. Lachance, the Director of Finance and Asset Management. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Your Worship, and good evening, Council. I will provide a brief introduction to this report, and I want to thank Council for the opportunity to be able to present guidelines on behalf of the district, as well as come back to Council on the communications plan as requested. It was in Council that it was in September that we received that direction from Council. We undertook development of the internal guidelines as well as the communication plan following that direction, and have returned now to present the guidelines for information for Council and to seek approval of the approach to communications. Staff are providing the first iteration of the long-term borrowing guidelines that will guide staff in prudently managing debt and making recommendations to Council where borrowing has been identified. The need for borrowing arises out of the district actioning a corporate asset management strategy aimed at achieving sustainable service delivery over time. This means the district has commenced work on deferred asset replacements while simultaneously moving forward with sustainable replacement of aging assets. The capital requirements of both reflected in the approved 5-year financial plans and recently reported in the long-term investment forecast reported to Council February 2026. The report before you specifically provides information on the long-term borrowing process, exceptions to that process, the introduction of the guidelines, and the communications approach. You'll find attached the district's debt management policy, the first iteration of the guidelines in attachment 2, and an example public infographic in attachment 3. Staff are requesting that the guidelines be received as mentioned and that Council approve the communications approach specifically outlined in section 3 of attachment 2. To assist Council, I just wanted to touch briefly on the communication plan and guidelines. Section 3 of the communications plan contains several key points to highlight. The communications plan is distinct from additional community engagement that will be undertaken dependent on the project. Communication and engagement plans are developed at an individual project level and will be included will include detailed borrowing information and options. The approach will differ depending on the type of project and also the type of elector approval process selected by Council. Messaging focused on why debt is used, how borrowing supports infrastructure renewal, what the financial impacts are over time, and how decisions align with long-term planning are key messages included in all communications considered. This information will be communicated, of course, in plain language, integrating into existing budget materials, capital planning updates, Council reports, and annual reporting. A draft infographic is included in attachment 3, and staff are happy to take any feedback Council has. We have provided it as an early indication. Staff are still working on that as a document, one of a number of key messages or highlights around the borrowing for the district in the coming years. So as I mentioned, happy to take feedback. And then just before finishing off, I briefly want to touch on the guidelines. They are presented for information to council and are intended to be a starting point to be improved on as the district matures practices around infrastructure funding. This work aligns and advances council's priority project for a comprehensive asset management plan, where maturity assessments identified priority for the development of reserve and debt management practices. The guidelines guide staff in providing prudent and consistent recommendations to council. To draw attention, a couple of notes that I wanted to draw council's attention to. One, on section 5, document page number 4, staff recommends setting an internal limit on borrowing below the maximum of the policy. I highlight this for council that while the district policy maximum is aligned with legislation, interest rate and high costs of borrowing at that level are typically not advised. To assist with managing debt and reporting to council, the internal limit has been set at 15%. Between 15 and 20%, should the activities would be escalated. There'll be more frequent monitoring and reporting to council. So I'm trying to hurry for you, Your Worship. Apologies. Based on the February 2026 long-term investment forecast, debt servicing is not expected to rise above that maximum of 15%. And before it reduces in future years as renewal and replacement demands subside. The second note I'll make is on section 7, document page 5. Staff have included an approach to blending reserves and debt funding. And this is based on a corporate finance theory, which determines, in relationship to cost of borrowing, an ideal ratio of debt and reserves, essentially encouraging staff to consider the optimal blend in making recommendations to council. By combining funding sources, the district optimizes its financial capacity while maintaining flexibility. The guidelines are attached in their entirety, and that concludes my introductory comments. I'm happy to take questions and hear discussion.
Thank you very much. Did not mean to make you feel rushed at all. Everybody really appreciate the overview provided. As this is really the first item on the agenda where we have our standard public input process, I'll just reiterate it for people. If anybody wishes to speak to this item, you can just raise your hand online and I'll call when the time is right in person. Procedurally, we typically go introduction, which has just happened. We'll take questions from council to get clarification. Then we'll go to the public for any additional comments or questions from the members of the public on this item. After that it concludes, we'll come back to this table and we'll seek direction from council. So there will be an opportunity for public input, but first we just go to see if there are any clarifying questions from members of council. So go ahead, Councillor Smart, and then Patterson to start.
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. This is a very small question because I just noticed it with the numbering, and I just wanted to ask on between pages 3 and 4 of the guidelines. I just wanted to know, so it goes from 2 when to use debt, and then on the next page it seems to go to 5 borrowing limits, and I just wanted clarification on if I was missing part of the report or if it's simply a numbering item. It might be something obvious that I'm missing. Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. LaChance.
Through your worship, yes, you're not missing anything. The numbering sequence is error in formatting.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the report, Ms. LaChance. I do have one question on page 15, item 7. It does say balancing debt and reserves, and it talks about the trade-off theory of capital structure. To me, that makes sense if you are weighing the difference between using debt or equity financing, and using tax advantages to drive valuation. I am not as clear as to what that would look like if a presentation was done to a local municipal council on that to aid their decision making. So I'm just wondering if you could shed some light on that for me.
Ms. LaChance.
Yes, thank you, through your worship. I would look to seek clarity if I am not getting it correctly. But I think it's regarding the capital structure and the theory around lowering overall cost of borrowing through debt and reserve use. Is that what your question was about?
Councilor Patterson, I think the specific question was related to the trade-off theory of capital structure in this scenario versus one where you're doing it based on tax advantage, et cetera. But go ahead, Councilor Patterson.
Yes, I'm used to, I was reading into it, oh my God, are they saying we're going to try and issue bonds or something? You know, because I was
yes.
looking at debt and equity.
Yeah.
And so that's where I got confused on this.
Yes,
We're not
okay.
issuing bonds, but
No.
go ahead,
No,
miss the chance.
no, thank you, your worship. We will not be issuing bonds ourselves. We do that through the Municipal Finance Authority. So absolutely, thank you for that clarification. And yes, the sort of most common use of this structure and theory is within sort of, whether to invest or take out debt to invest in some cases. And there are usually an after-tax consideration. So no, this is actually reframed just purely for the internal assessment of how to maintain a capital structure with the optimal cost of that capital structure. So the municipality is just like individuals or other commercial entities exposed to the cost of borrowing. And so paying an interest cost to borrow and have debt as part of the existing capital structure. And then likewise, also able to earn interest on reserves. And so typically reserves are likened with the annual tax revenue that's been brought in. And taxpayers are paying that money now and are ultimately taking on an opportunity cost for the future. So they're departing or parting with their money today, and that might be worth more to them. And so you're really looking to balance that loss of investment income, if you will, or opportunity cost with the cost of borrowing. And so it is possible to blend those and actually report to council within a community context around the differing costs of borrowing, blending reserves and debt.
Councilor Patterson?
Yes, thank you for that. I think I've figured my way through it. I will have to wait and actually see what it looks like on paper to understand that. The other question I have is around what we talk about as particular intergenerational fairness and in balancing how we either incurring debt or using reserves and whatnot. But I guess the concern I have, and I think it's echoed in feedback that I get from the community, and this might take some time to think about, but borrowing doesn't always translate into generational fairness in older communities like Oak Bay, because we're starting sort of behind the point that more modern communities might. And so we are already making annual contributions to reserves, which are playing some catch-up time because it wasn't done before. So we have kind of an escalated value of what we contribute to reserves. The higher operational expenses that we experience for repairs and maintenance because of the condition, and the annual interest cost of borrowing. So we are, at least in the shorter term, to a lot of us, it feels that we're taking a heavier load of whatever it is, whether it's debt or contributions to reserves or the higher costs of repairs and maintenance. And the cumulative effect of that is higher and probably will be for a while. And there are some of us who may never, in fact, experience some of the benefits that will be experienced by others simply because of the need to roll out a capital plan in some reasonable order, usually based on what our engineering department will say. So I guess the importance to me in this public engagement process is being able to rationalize that in a way that is palatable, makes sense, and shows kind of the roadmap, where we're coming from, where we're intending to go to, and the route we're going to take along the way. And so I'll just simplify it with that. But it's right now it feels to a lot of people that we are taking rather a disproportionate share of the burden for probably the next decade. So I'll make those comments, and because I didn't really see it addressed in the report.
Sure. I'm going to just make it into a little bit of a question, which is that I think it's worth just sort of addressing, because there is a limitation of the 15 years of the borrowing and so forth, and so maybe that's just a bit, Ms. Hunt?
Sorry, Your Worship, you didn't need to stop your train of thought there. I just wanted to respond to Councillor Patterson, because I think she hit the nail on the head, is that because there hasn't been the investment in the past. And so while it seems like there's a heavy hit, now and moving forward, it's because residents actually haven't had to make that investment in the past. And so, I think that is the key, that they've been able to save their own money because they haven't had to invest in the municipal, infrastructure. And so, yes, now it feels like a heavy hit, but it's because they haven't had to make that investment in the past. And so I agree with you. There is some messaging around that we're playing catch up. And so unfortunately it does feel like, it's heavy at this time.
I don't need to continue my question then. I'll go to Councillor Watson online. Please go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you very much, Mayor. And through you to staff, just to follow along that line of argument, though, I was curious about in the guidelines, looking back at them again, the debt amortization and that 15-year term that's kind of suggested or recommended as good policy with respect to intergenerational equity, because all other things being equal, I would expect, had we been making, significant investment in reserves in the past, and we were all caught up, that while the 15-year term shown in graphic 2, the optimal debt term to minimize payments and interest costs, makes sense where those two lines cross from an economic point of view, like debt payments versus term. Interest costs, payments versus interest costs, it doesn't really address the intergenerational equity issue for assets with longer useful lives. And I just wanted to comment, and I know staff have responded, we did get some commentary in the correspondence about that particular choice. And I just wondered if you could comment on how, going forward, advice on how you would incorporate maybe different debt amortization suggestions based on life of assets that don't always align with the graphic 2, because clearly maybe we should be paying more in interest costs in order to spread the load more fairly across the life of the asset.
Yes, go ahead, Ms. LaChance.
Yes, thank you. Through your worship, thank you for the question and the discussion so far. Absolutely hearing the concerns about the commitment to catching up, while also, taking care of the future. Just to answer the question, and then I would just circle back to the corporate asset management strategy. The 15 years is purely a guideline as a starting point. And this is just to guide staff in their consideration. And typical best practice would be to start from lease cost and then start to consider that asset and the beneficial use of that life and would it make sense. So the next, the existing debt management policy, as well as the guideline, does encourage consideration of the asset life with relationship to amortization term, and those will absolutely be recommendations that we will bring. It's just sort of giving practice on why 15. Why does 15 make sense when it is a shorter term? And typically when I've seen 15 years work really well is when you have roads, sewer, you have basically envelope of work that you'll be replacing pretty consistently over time. And so you'll want to retire that debt pretty quickly, but you'll quickly issue debt again. So you aren't necessarily losing the benefit of transferring that over generations. you're just keeping it the least cost. So that's something that staff will do on council's behalf and then make those recommendations and provide the analysis. The guidelines are not intended to limit options. Those would be up to council. And so I'll say that and stop there for your worship.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Watson?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Go
Staff.
ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to just ask staff to maybe, it's less of a question and more of elaboration on something that's found within the staff report. And we're, as staff have outlined, we're going to be confirming and developing the process for public input for individual project scope and developing with the community and with discussions with the community, sort of the overall cost and relevant borrowing needs for some of these larger capital pieces. And as we've seen with the Carnarvon building, especially being our most recent large-scale capital work, the projected costs, even from the most recent 5-year financial plan, may not be not inaccurate, but at least highly changeable in today's context. So I'm just wondering whether staff might be able to, for the purposes of the community and sort of for the benefit of the community, whether they might just be able to expand a little bit further on the process that they see happening in terms of receiving feedback from the community, communicating with the community on the need for borrowing for a given capital plan. And as the costing for that capital project evolves, how that discussion occurs with the community in terms of options analysis. And I realize that depends very much on what it is that we're talking about. It's difficult to pin that down, but essentially what I'm asking here is how is the community going to understand where they're going to have input to large scale capital projects and say, this is what we're comfortable with as far as a level of borrowing.
Is the chance?
Yes, thank you. Through your worship, happy to respond on that, happy to have the question. So I think best, of course, because the existing debt is not outstanding for the district, to use an example. So just taking the Carnarvon Park redevelopment project as an example, is that as we near the stage that we're in currently, near the end of detailed design, that's when we look to firm up the funding requirements. And as mentioned by Councillor Appleton, that the financial plan at earlier stages in a capital project may not be the number. And so we absolutely, before advancing loan authorizations or more firm plans of borrowing on a project, we'll look to confirm the numbers in terms of accuracy of the estimate on the project, which for Carnarvon we're about to do. And at that time is when we start to introduce the borrowing options and funding options. Both council would be having the opportunity to receive that, advise us, and at that time we would be recommending a methodology for communicating that to the public, whereby they would also have the option. Typically, we're going to be communicating those options where the approval process will include the public. If there's an approval process where council is moving forward on the elector approval free zone, that process may differ, but of course would be informed by council before we look to firm up funding plans on a by project basis.
Thank you. Anything else, Councillor Appleton?
Just a very quick follow-up just on what Ms. LaChance just mentioned, Your Worship. So what I'm hearing then is that we're still contemplating council decision points on engagement, if specifically for those projects which do not trigger an automatic electoral approvals process. So those things which stay within the process that does not automatically trigger that process, we're still contemplating a decision point or at least a touch point for council about communications needs, even if it is not mandated by the legislation.
Is the chance?
Yes, thank you, through your worship. That's correct. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't see any other questions from council at this time, so I'll open this up. I don't see any hands that have been raised online. Anybody in the audience wish to talk to us about this matter, which is, of course, a combination of the borrowing guidelines and the communication plan? If you're wishing to address council on this is your chance to do so. Just raise your hand in the audience or online. I don't see any hands popping up, so I'm going to come back to this table. We have a recommendation here, which are fairly straightforward. I think what we might do is I might seek to get the, we'll do first a motion to receive the report, so moved and seconded. We don't usually have a lot of debate on receiving the report, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed, none opposed? And then the second part, which is really the only part for decision tonight, is approving the communication approach, which is within the section 13 of attachment 2. Same mover and seconder. Oh, moved and seconded, thank you. So I think it's worthwhile, I think probably worthwhile, because those guidelines are fairly high level in terms of we will inform through these mechanisms and so forth. I think probably if any of you are like me, I read through that and thought, oh, I can think of some good ways of framing this or some things that probably are worth doing. So maybe before we call the question, if there's input that people had related specifically to the communications piece, I think this is a good place for us to have a quick discussion, and then we can get to the motion at hand. Please go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you too, Ms. LaChance, thank you so much for the report and the appendices, and they were really helpful. And I was talking about communication, I think, the last time in terms of making it digestible and understandable. I thank you for the singling out the communications piece. I was mindful of a letter that we received today, or an email from Mr. Sultanum, I believe, just pointing out the difference between consulting and informing. So he referenced the fact that at the moment the focus is on informing, and I think that's certainly appropriate. I think the next phase of that communication could be consulting, because I still don't believe that Oak Bay residents generally have a good understanding. What they see always every year is the tax increase. They don't realize that that is an investment that wasn't made many years ago, as you've both pointed out, you and our CAO, that we are now playing catch up. So I think that's a great way to sort of preface any of the communication around the budget, and that is, or the financial plan, and that is the fact that we are having to retool Oak Bay, essentially neighborhood by neighborhood. I mean, there is a lot of construction going on right now, and most of it is replacement, I believe, and upgrading. So I think that's an important message in which to provide the framework for part of the financial plan. So I do agree with Mr. Sultanum that somewhere there's room for consultation as well. What that looks like, I can't say at this time, but I will leave that to wiser heads or staff. But I think consultation is an important part of this. Thank you. And thank you very much for the report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Green. Before I go to other speakers, I actually just want to take a moment and thank Mr. Sultanum. For anybody who has the agenda package, we do take resident correspondence in, and it's often very thoughtful, and this was a good example of that. Just really went through and laid out the pros and cons of the current model, the opportunities for improvement, and appreciate that. I think in full agreement with most things that are in there. And I think is indicative of how far we've come and how there's still more work to get to. But I think he nailed it pretty much on the head of it, that we're on this arc of improvement, and the things that he flagged there were very constructive. So I just, if you're watching, Mr. Sultanum, really do appreciate that feedback. It's incredibly helpful. Now I'll go over to Councillor Appleton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So just in terms of your earlier comment to just in seeking commentary on the communications associated with the plan, and I just want to underline what has already been mentioned a couple of times here, just in terms of intergenerational equity and the point that we find ourselves as a district with respect to previous underinvestment. And I think that it's very important that the communications related to borrowing and talking about fairness across generations, as described in the draft materials provided by staff as part of the package, I think it's very important that we do point out and do specifically reference historical underinvestment, because it does have, not as a criticism of any previous direction taken, but it is the factual point at which we find ourselves. And so the decisions that this council and subsequent councils must take are informed by historical underinvestment and where the district finds itself. So if people are asking questions about why this specific course at this time and why this combination of debt versus reserves, that is informative, and I think people need to know about that. So that is not necessarily specific exclusively to Oak Bay, as we well know. Under investment in infrastructure and in terms of also infrastructure from senior levels of government in municipal infrastructure is in common with a lot of other municipalities. I think it's important that the community knows that the decisions that are being taken about borrowing, being in a situation where significant borrowing is required for what most people would describe as the fundamentals of municipal operations, is required at this juncture, that there is some history there. So I think it's important that the citizens that are paying taxes in the district right now understand why we find ourselves here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Appleton. I have Councillor Patterson and Watson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate certainly Mr. Sultanum's letter, but also all of the comments that have come in, and it is simply refining the process as we go along. I think that certainly I'm as concerned as any other members of the community, because the magnitude of the debt that we are talking about for a small community is not that far behind what Saanich has as debt. And so they have a lot more financial backup in reserves and different things than we do. So I think that when I first came to this district, there was a real angst about taking on debt for the district. And I did a lot of speaking at that time about how creating the infrastructure deficit was, in my opinion, an unfunded liability. And so while it wasn't debt, it posed certainly a risk that just was ignored. So, but I think we have to move very carefully, and we have to explain it very well to residents, knowing that the community was very risk averse to taking on debt, and now we are, we're moving in a different direction. I would, because I do a lot of reading on this subject, and I always like to give kudos to other municipalities that I think that have produced some documents that are user-friendly to the non-financial person in the audience. And one is the District of Saanich, because they were experiencing some of the same things, and they developed an educational tool, the Saanich Service Delivery Educational Tool, that is available on their website. And I thought it did a good job of explaining things to the layperson about what to do. And also Colwood's Sustainable Service Delivery has taken it and made the explanation of why we need sustainable service delivery and the funding for that into user-friendly language that is perhaps more easily understandable to those of us who are not financial experts in the room. So I offer that up as just references that we could take a look at and learn from, and maybe accommodate them for an Oak Bay style of explanation for. But I do certainly appreciate the work by the district staff here and everything they've done, and how far we have come along this process. And there's still a long ways to go, but we at least have a good framework for a plan now. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Watson-Smart. And a couple of comments, and I'll call the question. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Just final commentary. I am back to staff and their question about the messaging, and I think that in the guidelines, the community messaging, there are 6 bullet points, and I think that those are already reflected in the draft material they presented. But I do agree with Councillor Appleton. I think there needs to be a 7th bullet point about actually updating the community on why we're in the position we are. Again, not with assigning any blame or pointing fingers, but just making it clear that this strategy, this new strategy, really is required because we have not Well, we're doing the right thing to actually use debt to support long-term assets and their funding, and that we haven't done so in the past, because I don't think that that's clear yet in the communication materials, but I do think it's an important point to make. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much, Councillor Watson. Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to echo many of the comments around the table and just particularly highlight that while I do agree that and very much appreciate the material shown in this report with regards to communications, I do think we will need to shift from inform to consult, particularly as we approach larger projects that require more debt. I really think that we need to bring the community along with us and have those more complex conversations in a way beyond the inform level in the future.
Thank you very much. I think everybody's essentially said what I was going to say on these things. My sort of more minor points are, I thought that the points made in the example, the four-page device handout are excellent, but it ultimately probably needs to be a single page that people can pick up and read, because I think nobody in the real world ultimately will get through all of that, and the key points are there. I thought the two other things that, in terms of other things that people have pointed out, which I thought were all excellent things. One is, and it's mentioned in the report, but maybe in the materials for the public understanding, the opportunity cost of that delay is really a critical piece, right? The fact of the matter is that by delaying any of these projects, we get into ever increasing costs of these projects, and so by borrowing, we're able to advance them to an earlier time. That actually reduces the overall cost. So some information that kind of highlights the importance of being timely. And that's especially true with infrastructure, where if it gets past a certain point, the costs go off, just explode, because you're suddenly into break fix all the time and not just during strategic planning. The other one was just I think something that kind of highlights, because we've talked here, and I think there's often confusion about, now we're going to take on debt, and that suddenly increases the overall piece. But for a lot of this debt we're talking about, we've been paying aggressively into reserves, and that same money will essentially be going into paying for debt, and then when that debt is paid off, it'll keep going and paying back into reserves again. So this is not a massive spike. This is like we're allocating the funding so that to even out those, to prevent spikes. I think something that highlights that is really good. And I do think there may be worthwhile for this more in-depth piece that was put out here of doing some little sort of, informational video, sort of 30-second, minute-long thing that just sort of talks about this and kind of walks people through the debt thing, because it is the reality of our world that people are we're all a little bit ADD now, and need to have something that's easy to take in is very helpful. And there's some excellent ones online, but something that's maybe cribs from those and makes it Oak Bay specific is probably worthwhile. Those are my only other thoughts on this, and very supportive of the approach that's being taken here and the comments that have been made around this table. So the motion on the floor is essentially that approval. So I'm going to, not seeing any other hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you so much for this, and we look forward to the work going forward.
Thank you very much, Council.
We move now to bylaws and permits. This section is not for public input. So we have 11.1, the zoning bylaw amendment for 1330 Hampshire Road. Mr. Hatfield, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. The district has received a zoning bylaw amendment application for the property located at 1330 Hampshire Road to facilitate an addition to the existing legal non-conforming single-family dwelling on the property, which was constructed in 1913. The floor area ratio of the property is non-conforming to the bylaw limit, and a site-specific text amendment to the R5 zone is proposed to increase the maximum floor area ratio of the property. This application was presented to the Advisory Planning Commission at their meeting on March 18th, 2026, who recommended that the zoning bylaw amendment be approved. Staff are similarly recommending that the zoning bylaw amendment application be approved and the bylaw adopted. The applicant, Jackie Chang, is in attendance online tonight to answer any questions council might have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Hatfield. Are there questions for the applicant or to staff by members of council? Don't see hands popping up. So we have recommendations here. I want to point out that we can't take public input on this, as it's compliant with the OCP, and so the new provincial rules prevent us from taking public input. I do want to make a comment at the beginning of this before I start calling for the motions, that I was happy to see this just as a retention of that building. I think many of us go by that building, that house quite often. It's quite close to the village, and the concern was that it was going to be taken down. So seeing this have an opportunity for a second life is a very positive one, and I understand why the recommendation was put forward as it is. So with that, I'm going to seek. We need to have someone read into the. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Okay, I will, that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4954 be read a first and second time.
But yeah, just for clarification, amendment bylaw number 4954, 2026.
Yeah.
Be read a first and second time. Okay, moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? This is the chance for debate. Kind of preempted my comment, so I think I'll leave it there. Go ahead, Councillor Green.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a similar comment as liaison to the Heritage Commission. It means a lot when an older home like this is preserved and upgraded, in fact, and so it will be restored and it will be different, but it will still be there, and that's part of the history of the neighborhood and the community. So thank you to the applicant.
All right. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Can you read again the third reading?
Yes, that zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4954, 2026 be read a third time.
And seconded. Thank you. Don't usually debate on third reading. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? And then we can adopt.
That zoning bylaw number 3531, 1986, amendment bylaw number 4954, 2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That carries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Hatfield, and thank you to the applicant, and good luck with the project. We move now to 11.2, the Streets and Traffic Bylaw. We have a series of bylaws, but this one just required given direction from the last council meeting, a slight amendment. So I'm going to, again, because these are bylaws, just ask that they be read into the record. Councillor Patterson, if you wish, you can continue the process.
All right. The reading of Streets and Traffic Bylaw number 4100-2000, amendment bylaw number 4955, 2026 be rescinded.
Is there a seconder? Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed?
That Streets and Traffic Bylaw number 4100-2000, amendment bylaw number 4955, 2026 be amended in section 2 by striking the words "not for profit."
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Councillor Watson?
Yes, Mayor. Yes, just a comment. I thought that actually the section, it's section 1 where the words appear in the amendment bylaw.
Sure, but let's
Not
have a quick
section
check to make
2.
sure. Thank you for that. I'm not going to look it up online. I'm going to let Mr. Bowl here confirm. The question was just, is that wording correct, that it's section 2 amended in section 2, or is it section 1 of the bylaw?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not the right person to answer this question. I've not been preparing this bylaw amendment, so I'm hoping that somebody else can support this.
Oh, sorry, you're right. It's a parking bylaw, which is engineering.
No, I can answer the question. Thank you, through you,
please go
Mayor.
ahead.
Section 1 is correct. It's amending section 1, 2 of the Streets and Traffic Bylaw, but the amendment bylaw, it's section 1, so yes.
So the amendment bylaw be
Yes.
amended in section 1?
Yes.
That's how that wording should be?
Mhm.
So I'll take that as the mover and seconder both amenable to that, okay? So it's corrected to say it's amended in section 1 by striking the words "not for profit." Thank you, Councillor Watson, for your eagle eyes. So the question, let's see, any other discussion on it? I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Not opposed. So we have it now as amended. So if I could get third reading.
That Streets and Bylaw number 4100-2000, amendment bylaw number 4955, 2026 be read a third time as amended.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I just want to point out before I call the question, and I'll welcome any other comments. But for anybody following along here, this is a bylaw that came to us last meeting. There was a request to change the words "not for profit." We just wanted the staff to get some clarification to make sure that was viable. So it's back here now with that minor change, and we have to go through this amendment process to allow that to happen. We have already discussed and debated this at a previous meeting. This was just essentially a text amendment that had to come back. So in case anybody's wondering why we're kind of moving through this one a little bit quickly, that's the reason for it. Is there any other discussion on the third, before I call third reading? Councillor
Yes,
Watson?
Mayor.
Please go
Yes,
ahead.
sorry, I just going back and looking at this without my notes from the last meeting as I'm off far away from you guys. I just wanted clarification from staff again about whether this particular provision for allowing car share co-ops is based on the Victoria bylaw. That was my first question.
Is Mr. Rennick online? Yes, he is. Mr. Rennick, if you're available to answer that question.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, the wording of car share co-op was taken from City of Victoria Streets and Traffic Bylaw.
Thank you. And then, so just a final question, because when I was looking at this and we've taken out nonprofit, I just wondered why we even needed I'm not going to stop this moving forward tonight, but I did wonder why it didn't just say car share program, because based on staff input, we're seeing that there could be various ways to provide car share in a community, and they not necessarily a cooperative model. So that's just a question. It wouldn't change how I would vote on moving this forward tonight, but I am curious as to why we would limit it to co-ops.
Sure. Mr. Rennick, do you have an answer for that?
Through the mayor, no, I don't really have an answer to that. It's terminology that I've seen consistently in other jurisdictions' bylaws, but I couldn't speculate whether or not it should be included.
Okay. So it's consistent, but it's not necessary. That's the history of it, Councillor Watson, if that helps. Any other
Yeah,
discussion?
thank you. I just a comment. I think maybe before we actually call the final question, going forward, we may find that there are other car share initiatives that would want support in Oak Bay, and it may mean we have to come back and change this bylaw. But for now, if that's what everybody else is doing, I'm happy to support it. I just think we may need to make changes in the future.
Thank you. My recollection of that was the wording provided by the sort of co-op, by the car share sort of group that came forward and asked, and so I think that's the primary source of it at the end of the day. Okay, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That is sitting at third reading. It will come back for adoption at a future meeting. We move down to 11.3. We've had first three readings of the Development Application Procedures Bylaw, Amendment Bylaw number 4950. Can I have someone read the recommendation? Go ahead.
That Development Application Procedures Bylaw number 4844, Amendment Bylaw number 4950 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? We don't usually discuss on adoption, but this is here for sober second thought for this reason. Don't see any hands popping up. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. Same thing for 11.4. This is Parking Facilities Bylaw number 3540, 1986, Amendment Bylaw number 4956, 2026. Please go ahead.
The Parking Facilities Bylaw number 3540, 1986, Amendment Bylaw number 4956, 2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Same rules apply. Anybody wishes have any thoughts before I call adoption? Seeing none, all those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. And 11.5, adoption of loan authorization bylaws. Ms. LaChance, did you wish to provide any, this is just for adoption, so I'm assuming nothing. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
That loan authorization, road reconstruction program, bylaw number 4929, 2025 be adopted.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Please, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I did have one just question for staff related to
Please
this.
go ahead.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, to Director Rennick. In reading tonight's agenda with regards to this loan authorization, I realized that I'm still unclear at which stage of reporting from engineering to council. Will council be reviewing potential additional project scope with consideration of the Complete Streets policy? So for example, with the Estevan project, will there be a stage in which engineering may come back to council with an option for potential pedestrian sidewalk improvements, additional tree plantings, bike racks, benches, for example, So could staff clarify when in a project process, the complete streets policy will be reviewed and whether there is council involvement or if it's going to be operationalized? I just appreciate some clarity. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. A little outside the loan authorization side of it, but if Mr. Rennick, if you have an answer, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, thank you. Through the mayor, thank you for the question. We have been updating a lot of the policy, a lot of the practice around how capital projects are delivered in Oak Bay over this council term and the previous council term. At the moment, council is provided with an update on the capital plan. Past couple of years, it was a standalone presentation. This year, it was done as part of financial plan. So that's kind of one of council's opportunities to see what projects are being done and to discuss scope and intervene. Primarily, the capital projects that have been done have been really asset renewals. And as part of asset renewals, the surface infrastructure has been put back in much the same state that it was before. There have been a couple of capital projects that scope has been a little bit larger and has included some discretionary items, which council's approval has been sought. For example, in the Humber sewer separation project, council's approval was sought on the type of streetlights that went in. And just in general, as we continue to ramp up the capital program, we'll continue to look for more opportunities for council to weigh in and have those types of discussions of enhancements to the streetscape, should that be the will of council. I hope that answers the question.
Thank you. Then, so we had the road reconstruction program loan authorization read in and seconded. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor for adoption? Any opposed? None opposed? Can you read the second part?
That loan authorization storm sewer rehabilitation program bylaw number 4930 2025 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. That was a fairly procedural way of moving forward an enormous amount of future work. So best of luck to both the finance and asset management department as well as the engineering department, because there's a lot of work there. In a similar note, obviously, probably even more import, we have 11.6, which is the culmination of a lot of work to this point. So perhaps I can get Councillor President to just read in that as well.
That the 2026 to 2030 financial plan bylaw number 4957 2026 be adopted.
Moved and seconded. We don't usually debate on adoption, but this is the financial plan. So I think it's worth just making a note here that this culminates our official approval of the financial plan. There are still aspects to come in terms of some of the other additional follow-on bylaws and financial reporting and so forth. But I just want to express my appreciation to all three parties always involved in this. One is staff who yet again improved our process for financial planning and I think allowed us to get to a place that was manageable at the end of the day. To the public, who obviously provided an enormous amount of input and thoughtful discourse about how we might improve it and what was important throughout the year on all kinds of issues, and all of that culminates together in that process. And most finally here, culminating tonight with council, I really appreciate the time and energy that council put in reading all the details, having a very thoughtful and open debate, asking good questions of staff, and coming to what is a compromise at the end of the day, but one that I think that to this point has been unanimous. I think reflecting that a reasonable compromise, meeting both the needs of the community and the financial management responsibility. So on behalf of everybody together, I think we've reached this point, and so I just want to acknowledge that. It's been an enormous amount of work. It seems strange just to have a motion to adopt and conclude it, so I just wanted to say a few words there before I call the question. Is there anything else before I call the question? No. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed. We now move to new business. There is a motion here for reconsideration. This is a matter that came before us at the last council meeting for covenant amendment for 592 Island Road. Councillor Patterson, I need you to start basically reading the motion that council reconsider, et cetera. And then if there's a seconder, we can go through the process.
Thank you, Mayor, and I do appreciate that, and I appreciate council's consideration on this. And the motion is that council reconsider resolution 2026-131, the covenant amendment application COV 00010 for the property located at 592 Island Road be denied.
Is there a seconder? So on the motion to reconsider, moved and seconded. So we now debate reconsideration. Councillor Patterson, perhaps you can just motivate the rationale. You're the one bringing this forward as to the rationale for reconsideration. We will call the question on reconsideration. If it passes, then we can get to the meat of the actual covenant application itself. Go ahead, Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And the reason for my coming back to council on this is that I did do a site tour of the property and did receive more information about the property itself, some of the surrounding area, and also the proposed development for that. So when I look back at this, and it's hard to believe it's been going on since 2016, but the original goal was to create an RS5 lot in order to modestly expand housing while respecting tree protection, neighborhood character, and environmental considerations. And so we did place a covenant on it required to protect existing trees, defining a suitable building envelope, and then to include road paving, landscaping, and tree planting in coordination with our Parks Department. So in meeting with the residents, with the proposed developer, and understanding that local residents were generally supportive back in 2016 and still are, provided it fit with the area's form and character, certainly with the plans that I was able to view from the applicant of what is proposed. It does appear to me that, in fact, that what is being proposed does fit the area's form and character, and all of the input from this certified arborist about mitigating potential risk to the tree. And I understand there is still some potential risk, but I do understand the commitment of the proponents to, in fact, manage the risk well. And I think that what is before us then is an opportunity to, if we modify the covenant, to slightly expand the building footprint, and by carefully managing the construction process, it will help us meet the original intent of why the subdivision was proposed. And I think that there is a good collaborative effort and a strong desire to see this whole process managed in a way that is amenable to the community. So for that reason, and had I had more of this information previously at the council meeting, I would not have denied the application. I would have allowed the change to the covenant and allowed it to proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I appreciate it's hard to motivate on why the reconsideration without motivating on the rationale behind it. So you've done a 2-for-1, so thank you for that, time efficient. But the motion that's in front of us right now is a motion to reconsider. If it passes, then we'll come back to where we were last time. We can talk about the merits of the application. If it's defeated, then that concludes the pieces. So the ask right now is to asking the will of council to reconsider right now. So that's the application right now. Not the. I appreciate you should have had to make that, but I think I'd allow a little leeway here because reconsiderations are a bit odd. So on the motion to allow reconsideration of this, go ahead, Councillor Appleton.
Well, thank you, Your Worship. Speaking against the motion on the floor, quite frankly, as you just referenced, reconsiderations are unusual and should be based on, fairly exceptional circumstances where new information has been provided. And although I understand that the proponent feels that they have extra information to provide, since the time that council originally considered this matter and today, I have not seen any new information arrive from staff or a revised staff report that would further inform my decision making. So essentially, I have the same amount of information in front of me for the purposes of decision making as I had at the original meeting. So I don't support reconsideration because I do not see that circumstances as far as information that would guide decision making have changed. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I want to add to Councillor Appleton's comments. I too will not be supporting reconsideration. Again, I'm very concerned about the integrity of covenants. We apply them after careful consideration. I do appreciate that the owners and applicant took the time to allow a site visit. I was there on Friday morning, and I appreciated seeing the site, but it fundamentally doesn't change the information regarding the application or regarding the plan. So I trust staff on this particular application. And again, I am concerned about the precedents we're setting with potentially removing a covenant if that's the outcome. So thank you.
Thank you. This is going to get a little blurry just because it's hard to talk about the valid merit of reconsideration and not talk to the underlying facts. But go ahead, Councillor Watson.
Thank you. I will support Councillor Patterson's motion for reconsideration. I think that at the last council meeting, there was information that might have been shared with the applicant to council, and that opportunity, maybe the applicant didn't understand they could have taken it, or they didn't feel free to actually share some of the things that I know Councillor Patterson now understands. I did, I think, understand at that time, and I think Councillor Patterson is fair in saying that there is new information that she has been privy to now, and that makes it legitimate request to have this back on the table for council discussion. So I will support the motion for reconsideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I'll just speak very briefly to the motion. I think it's very supportive of the motion for reconsideration. Very is a strong word, but supportive. I think that anytime people close votes and there's nuance to these pieces, these applications and these things have a great deal of meaning to both the applicants and to the community, and so the opportunity to make sure that we're making a fulsome decision makes sense to me. So supportive of this motion for reconsideration, then we'll get to the meat of the matter if it passes. Again, a vote in favor of this will allow for a conversation about what to do. A vote in opposition essentially concludes the matter tonight. So all those in favor of the reconsideration? I have, and those opposed? I have Councillor Appleton Green opposed. So that brings us back here basically to right before where council was considered. So we had live on the floor a motion to decline. Now, Councillor Patterson, you've essentially motivated for the rationale for voting against the motion to decline, which would be essentially then if that does fail, then that would open up other options, either for approval or for referral to staff and so forth. So I don't know if you want to add anything to that, or if you want to just see if there's any other people wishing to speak prior to you speaking again. Okay. Anybody else wish to speak on this? Councillor Watson, I'm not sure if that's a legacy hand. Okay, nope, still a real hand.
No, that's me, just to speak in support of the request for the covenant amendment. So I would be, it sounds like Councillor Patterson has in effect moved the motion to grant the covenant application. If that is the case, then I would just say that as I had argued or discussed with council when this was before us on March the 23rd, I think this is a very reasonable request. The impact on the tree root zone is small. That is shown in the drawings and in the arborist analysis. Both our own staff arborist and the applicant's arborist. And in terms of the risk benefit, I think the risk is to the tree is low. It still exists, but it is low, whereas the benefit is quite high. The benefit is high to the community and to a particular family who would like to move into the community. And I think that with the risk mitigation strategies proposed, that this is a completely reasonable request and a wonderful way to welcome a new family into the community, allow them to create a family home with a secondary suite in a particular development approach, which really beautifully suits the nature of that sweep of Island Road and will be a real asset in Oak Bay. So I am really happy to support an amendment to the covenant to allow this development to proceed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. Ms. Anderson?
My apologies for interrupting. I just wanted to clarify for Councillor Watson that the motion before council
I'll
is
get
to
to that,
deny.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so the actual motion right now is to deny the very thing, so we'll get to that procedural pieces. And I just want to also, so thank you for that clarification. I was just going to get there, and to the fact that I think importantly we're talking about an amendment to the covenant as a part of the piece, not a removal of a covenant. I think it's because the language sometimes gets a bit blurry. So, okay. So the motion right now is as it was the previous meeting, which is the motion made by the council is to decline the application. So again, I hate these motions because the motion in favor of this declines it, and a motion against it defeats it, and that opens up other opportunities. So just so we're all very clear, the motion in front of us is to decline the application, which would end this application at this point. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Thank you. I just wanted to express that I will be speaking against the motion to decline the application. As you may recall, at the last meeting, I was torn really with how to proceed with this, but what became clear to me then, and is even more clear to me now, having visited the site, is that there are so many mitigation considerations for the tree, and there is so much benefit for both the community and the potential life that will happen within this dwelling. And so, as Councillor Watson very eloquently stated, that when you look at the risk ratio versus the benefit ratio, it's clear to me that I need to vote against the application to deny. Thank you.
Yes, vote against the motion, not against the application. That's to be very clear. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, I thank you, Mayor, and I will, of course, be voting against the original motion, which was to deny, and certainly having an understanding of the proposed development and its fit with the form and character of the neighborhood is an important factor in it for me, but I certainly respect Councillor Green's comments that a covenant is a very important document and one that I don't take lightly at all. I think that it's very important that we honor those documents as much as we can. But I think that going back and looking at it and realizing that this has been in place now for pretty well a decade, and the covenant, while I think it was well drafted for what the intent was at that time, has not, in fact, resulted in the goal that we had hoped for, which would have been a suitable dwelling unit on that lot that fit the form and character of the neighborhood, which is what the residents wanted. And so I think that if that length of period of time has passed and the covenant has not resulted in the overall goals of what the covenant was intended to do, then it's not unwarranted to come back and revisit how to amend it so that in fact we can have some opportunity of reaching that successful goal. So that's my reason for voting against it.
Thank you very much. Seeing no other hands, I'm going to call the question again. The motion on the floor is the original motion, which is to decline. So motion in favor declines, the motion opposed ends that, and then we'll open up for other motions. All those in favor of the motion on the floor, I have Councillor Appleton and Green, and those opposed, I have Councillor Patterson, Smart, Watson, and myself, so that fails. With the failure of that motion, we have a couple of options here, but really, what I'd probably suggest is that the original option 2 is that the covenant amendment application for 592 Island Road be approved, and that the mayor and corporate officer be authorized to discharge covenant number CA 708-4432 and register a new restrictive covenant to amend the tree protection area. That would be the recommendation option. So do you wish to make that, Councillor Patterson? I think I've read it into the record. So if someone just need a mover and a seconder, and we can then debate that option. If people are, and again, the other option here is that we could refer this back to staff or some other piece if there's other work to be done. But we have had this in front of us now twice, so I think it's at least worth having a discussion. So this is now a motion, as I said, essentially to approve the covenant amendment, and then essentially to delegate authority to deal with the minutia. So moved and seconded. Any further discussion? I know we've kind of talked about this in the previous motion, but back to this table before I call the question. Councillor Appleton.
No, thank you, Worship. So speaking against the motion that's on the table, I will just bring up a couple of points of note here. I want to be very, very clear that despite what has been raised during the discussion here, Council has no new information on which to make their decision. I too attended the site. I too have spoken with the proponents to get a better understanding of what it is that they seek to accomplish. And it's clear to me that there is a difference in perspective from the proponent to what is expressed in our staff reports. That is what is in front of us for decision making. There is no new information in front of council as of this reconsideration, as was on the original debate. So I disagree personally with the use of this, with the use of reconsideration in this matter, because we have no new information in front of us. It is not for council to determine what impact on the tree will be, nor is this a discussion with respect to form and character or the nature of the development. This was a debate and a consideration specifically about the need to encroach into an already established covenant that was clear and established at the time of subdivision. So I disagree with the approach taken here because I do not have any new information that differs from when this matter was considered originally. There is every opportunity for the proponent to bring forward additional information, work with staff to revise the staff report to have additional information provided to council, but that is not the case at this stage. So I will not vote to support this motion. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Just for clarification of the debate, we've had the debate on the reconsideration motion. We're now on the merits of the application. Again, they get blurred, so I appreciate that that's both comments I would consider to be in order, but just to keep focus our debate on what's in front of us, which is the specifics of the ask of the amendment to the covenant, which is the motion on the floor. Please go ahead, Councillor Green.
Yes, thank you. I will be speaking against the motion as well, but I wanted just to add that site visits are very useful. Particularly in cases that are difficult and complicated, as this was, including the covenant. And I did appreciate the owners and the applicant spending time trying to explain the issue to me. But I think my preference at this point would have been to refer this back to staff for further clarification or, in fact, for further information. So I will not be supporting the motion at hand, but thank you to everyone involved.
All right, thank you. We have the motion live on the floor. I think, I think I said my piece in the last go around. I'm supportive of this. Was it the last time, and I continue to be. So I don't think I need to reiterate too much. I do think, though, just to reiterate, my understanding and my memory of this application was that the covenant was put there to ensure that whatever was built took consideration of that tree, largely because our bylaws do allow for if a tree sitting within the footprint of a building to be taken down, and that does not come to council. And so the owners, the same owners now as they were back then, wanted to protect that tree. Council wanted to protect the tree. It's a very significant tree. And so the intention of that covenant was to ensure the survival of that tree, and that an application would not just, without any sort of input, take down the tree. And to my mind, the covenant application in front of us accomplishes that. And so there is, as pointed out, some risk. But if I was going down, I think I went for a walk with my daughter the other day down St. David, and just the sheer number of these giant Gary oaks that are located within 8 or 10 feet of the houses around there is quite phenomenal, and it certainly can be done and maintain the integrity of the tree. And I know that that's the intent here. So I am very, I think in this case, the balance here is in the interest of seeing housing built and the land being used. So I'm supportive of the motion that's on the floor. Seeing no other hands, I'll call the question. All those in favor? And those opposed? I have Councillor Appleton and Green opposed. That motion does carry. That's the nature of a reconsideration with a one-vote swing. So with that, that will be advanced. The covenant will be approved. Congratulations, the applicants in the room here with us. There's no notices of motion on my record. So we just have one last item on the agenda, which is correspondence from other governments or agencies. And obviously we have a letter here that we have to receive. And maybe what I'll do is I'll take a motion to receive the letter, moved and seconded. Then we can take some discussion. If there's any sort of additional thoughts or questions, we can do that. Councillor Smart, go ahead.
Thank you. Question perhaps to you, Mayor, or through you to staff, whichever is more appropriate, but I'm just curious if there has been discussion on how to respond.
Sorry, I'm just going to ask, sorry, Councillor Appleton, your hand is up. Did you wish to speak right now? Or are you just raising your hand to speak to this item on the agenda? Yeah, okay, sorry. I wasn't paying attention and I thought maybe it was a legacy. Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
I was just curious if there had been discussion at this point as to whether staff would be responding to this letter or if there was direction required at this table in order to respond to this letter. Thank you.
Sure. It's a letter from another body of government, just essentially passing on the request from the minister who asked that they do so, asking for this information. So I think you could read that almost any way you want. But Mr. Bull, I might just ask of you. Obviously, we've had this ask of us in the past, and there's a couple, just perhaps some clarification of where we would normally, or where we expect to be touching on some of these questions. Like, is there land available? Where would it be? How would it get incorporated? I know we have affordable housing strategy. We have a few other pieces that are sort of coming up, but perhaps you could just give an overview of where these things would normally be discussed, and if there's a will of council to say supersede that or do something else, then we could perhaps give that direction. Mr. Bull?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The district still has a number of projects in the future, planned for the future, to look at what the district's role might be to support non-market housing, and that might extend to municipally owned sites. There's, for example, the affordable housing strategy project that is currently on the long list, but also the village area plan extends to some sites that the district owns that could have bearing on housing options that have been discussed in the past as well by council. And there's also other projects that the strategy about rental housing stock, for example, is another one where in the future we're going to create some clarity about what the goals are for the district, and subsequently it would be a next step then to look at sites and what could be done. The district doesn't have a lot of vacant sites, or hardly any really. So that's another dimension to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bull. Anything else, Councillor Smart, in terms of questions?
That's my only question for now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Appleton?
Thank you, Worship. So I guess building on what through you and building on what Mr. Bull has just said, I guess it's a two-component question. Number one, will the outcome of staff's analysis be shared with council? And further to that, are the decision-making matrix, or at least essentially the factors evaluated by staff, also shareable with council? So is that something that is going to occur automatically? Like, would there be a staff report out on this? This is essentially providing information to a different level of government. Personally, I would be interested in the metrics used to make that assessment, and ultimately what the feedback provided to the CRD was, if that could come to the council table, and whether or not that requires a resolution of council.
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Appleton. Ms. Hunt just wanted to weigh in here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mayor. Through you to Councillor Appleton, I just want to clarify that, this is a letter from, elected body to Mayor and Council. Staff won't be taking any action unless directed by Council. So we would not be undertaking any specific study or analysis in terms of our publicly owned sites that are available for immediate supportive or housing or sheltering. I think what Mr. Bull was talking about was, future projects that we have where we would be looking at the district's role within the realm of housing that could include supportive housing and sheltering. So we are not taking any immediate action right now in terms of analysis of the sites, potential sites that the district may have. We are, just to add on, some work that staff is doing through council direction is to look at the lands that we own with respect to our aging facilities and how we're going to plan for, the municipal, civic and community facilities that need to be replaced over time. And so that land inventory will be coming back to council and as we embark on that project. And that is separate from any policy or strategy work that planning, community building and planning will be doing.
Councillor Appleton?
Yeah, if I could just follow up on that, I appreciate those comments, Your Worship. I'm potentially maybe then a little confused because the correspondence from the CRD specifically requesting that member municipalities undertake an internal review to identify any publicly owned or otherwise viable lands or facilities. So maybe I'm confused with what Ms. Hunt just said, but that sounds like their CRD is asking staff to undertake a certain degree of work, but I just heard Ms. Hunt say that we're not doing that, but maybe I'm misunderstanding that.
That's correct. So maybe some clarification. At a CRD meeting, Minister of Housing, Boyle, came and addressed the CRD board, laying out, this is it's a multi-sequential process where the City of Victoria came forward with their planning process where they identified some roles that perhaps the CRD might be able to play in addressing some of the regional sheltering and housing. The staff report came back and laid out some of the, what they could and could not do in terms of there's some legislative restrictions between the Housing Corporation, CRD, and Hospital District. That report came forward, and then there was an invitation from the City of Victoria to say to come to the CRD and present. And so they came just as a delegation, and the minister came and presented to the CRD board, laying out their desire to find additional housing and shelters in the region. The CRD board took that and basically directed that the board chair write to all the member municipalities and just ask them if, make the ask, do you have anything that's readily available? And if so, please send your information to the minister or BC Housing for consideration for one of their projects. Probably worth noting here that presentation happened very shortly before the budget, where they cut back almost all the funding for the kind of housing and supportive things that were being considered. So we're kind of in an awkward situation where we're being asked to provide immediate opportunities for non-market housing and sheltering at a time when the province has essentially said they're not funding any of these projects. So it's a strange moment in time, but that's a little bit of the sort of the context and history. It's not a directive from any level of government. It spelled out of a presentation to the CRD board, and the CRD board said, well, we really obviously can't do much ourselves, but we can write a letter on your behalf and ask people. So that's essentially where we're at here tonight.
I appreciate that context, Your Worship. I guess then I'm saying that at the end of the day, are we going to respond and essentially say we do not have an opportunity for those things, or do we in fact respond at all?
Well, I'll just say procedurally here, and correct me if I'm wrong, staff, a letter from the CRD asking us to, to basically review, and if we feel we have sites that are appropriate, to send them to the province. I would say the CRD is not expecting a response, and the province isn't expecting a response unless we have something available. So there's really not an ask here from my reading of this. Yeah, I'm getting a nod from the audience, from Ms. Hunt here as well. So the motion to receive is appropriate, but again, if the board, if the council feels like we want to do a bit more work to see if there are some immediately available sites, then we could, we could give that direction to staff.
Thank you, Worship.
Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you for the background on that, because it certainly does add context to the discussion here. But because the letter that was before us, of course, says it does speak about immediate action to support the needs of individuals who experience homelessness and housing precariousness. And I think we are all well aware of the problems that exist in the region. But I just want to make clear that I support staff, first of all, looking at inventory within Oak Bay to manage the needs of this community, but also the way the letter is framed, it is just if you have a site, but it is not just the site or the facility, it's all the services that must go with that. And I attended the workshop that was put on by the City of Victoria, and it was put on at the Salvation Army in the City of Victoria. But when I asked about the services that had to go with it, the list was extensive, and it certainly merited pause and considering what could be done. And so, the letter speaks about kind of a facility or a site, but it doesn't address the services, and I don't see how you could possibly weigh putting forward one without the other, and so that list is not apparent. So I think at this point in time there is not a lot of positive action that we could take to move forward.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Don't see any other hands. So the motion on the floor is to receive the letter. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? None opposed? Nothing else? Go ahead, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, thank you. I'd just like to do a motion arising, just to have this discussion with council around the table, just to ask the mayor to write a letter to the housing minister around our future work on an affordable housing strategy and our appreciation around the problems in the district, and to have a response to this letter that isn't just silence. So I just attest the will of council by putting a motion forward, responding to this letter and future work we would undertake in a recognition for the homelessness problem.
Just a little cleaner language on that. I think if you're asking me to write a letter in response to the minister in response to this, outlining our, maybe I'll make a suggestion here, direct the mayor to write a letter to the minister outlining our the plans and potential plans that we have that would identify appropriate places for below market or shelter housing, something along those lines.
I'm amenable to that. Yes.
Okay, that's just, I think, not getting into the weeds too far. And is there a seconder for that? Seconded by Councillor Appleton. I think it's pretty clear what you're asking for, but I think given the hesitancy on hand seconding it, maybe just worth motivating a little bit, Councillor Smart.
Yeah, certainly. And I really do appreciate the added context that's been shared around this report and the fact that the provincial funding may not be there to really support, in a sense, the ask of this letter. I just think it's important that we continue a positive relationship with the province to show them that, we are aware of the current complex environment that we're in right now, and that we're not simply ignoring the letter.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I will speak against the motion. I think that through the process that we have undergone with the province about the housing plan and all of the work done by staff and the review and the correspondence that has been we've received and responded to, and the advisor that was appointed and all the work that we did with the advisor to, I think, clearly articulate both the goals and the challenges that are in this community, and given certainly the fact that the province has in fact pulled any of their support from this and perhaps are hoping for a miracle that we can solve the problem, but we can't do it alone. And so rather than responding in any lengthy way to say basically we don't have anything for you is not, I don't see how that would be beneficial to the process. I think that I would first like to await the staff work that is being done on an inventory in the community. And with that, then we will have a better understanding of what is available, what we need to meet the community's needs. And at that point in time, we will be better informed, perhaps, if there is to be any response. But I think, you know, it's almost like just writing a letter of platitudes that are not going to serve any value to either the province or to our community. So I don't think that this is working against the province. It's just that we're just not. I would just not respond to this. Thank you.
I have Councillor Watson and then Councillor Green.
Yes, if I may, it's a question for staff about reporting, because as Councillor Patterson has just pointed out, we do a lot of reporting to the province on housing. I know we have to report on our targets, and there are other reports that we have submitted recently. And I just wondered if our priority project to do a sort of supportive housing and affordable housing strategy for the community would have made its way even as an appendix into anything that we've reported out to the province so far. So I guess that's for Director Bowl.
Yeah, Mr. Bowl.
Thank you, Mayor. And through you, I'm not entirely sure. Our focus has been on the required projects that we worked on last year particularly. And I know in the last report that we provided to the Minister in November, we would have talked about upcoming projects around pre-zoning, following up the official community plan, but also the optimization of development processes project. I don't think we casted our eyes beyond that to future potential projects, but it's something that could be included in a future report. Thanks.
Thank you. So I think I don't recall it being mentioned, and partially because it is on a long list right now. The affordability strategy has been pushed aside as we're doing all the other work on housing stuff. So I don't think it has been. Anything else, Councillor Watson?
And just to say that I you know, in future, if we do that work and it becomes part of our reporting onto the province, they would hear about it. And I understand totally Councillor Smart's intent in keeping the province aware, but I do think it isn't really adding much value about telling them that we have nothing to offer, particularly when they have nothing to offer to support that at the moment. I think it looks like a bit of a sort of make work project for the mayor in writing a polite letter. So I don't think this is, I think it's nice, but I do not think it's necessary at the moment. Thank you.
Councillor Green?
Yeah, I'll speak very briefly, and I also appreciate Councillor Smart's. I think her heart is in this issue, and mine is too, as a former vice chair of Our Place Society. Believe me, this is a highly difficult, I can't tell you how difficult and challenging this issue is. And I don't think writing a letter, I would hate us to raise expectations that Oak Bay is going to rush forward and start down this road, which is a very difficult one. and the resources it takes. It isn't just about a building, and it's about staffing and training and special health services and healthcare. I mean, there's so much involved. So what I'd like us to do is have that internal conversation and perhaps invite Julian Daly to a meeting and to talk about some of the challenges at that street level. If you've been reading Jody Patterson's column in the Times Columns, she's written 3 or 4 very important articles on this issue. I think we need to know more and understand more before we launch. And I would hate us to raise expectations or make promises that we can't keep.
Thank you. I'm just going to take the will of council. I don't have a strong opinion on this one way or the other. So I don't see any other hands on this. So Councillor Appleton, I just see you putting a screen on. Did you wish to speak before I called the question? No. So the motion on the floor is to direct me to write a letter. There's an odd number of you, so I'll take the majority view of you and support it. All those in favor of writing the letter? And those opposed? I have Councillor Watson, Green, and Patterson opposed. So, and yeah, that's fine. That defeats on a tie. So we'll, that's not pass. Thank you, Councillor Smart, for putting it forward. It was a worthwhile discussion, I think, as to what else we could possibly do on that. I don't see any other hands for motions arising or other pieces. So I think at this point I'm looking at a motion to adjourn. Moved and seconded. For those online, thank you so much for joining us. And we look forward to seeing you next week at the Committee of the Whole, you and all the members of the public. All those in favor? Any opposed, not opposed? Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Worship.